So in this video, we're going to talk about Mary Zimmerman's play Argonautika. This is a theatrical adaptation of Apollonius Rhodius's Argonautika, an epic poem from the 3rd century BCE. Yes. Zimmerman is really good at adapting things for the stage that don't necessarily have any business being adaptable for the stage, and the Argonautika is one of them. This is an epic adventure tale centered on the voyage of Jason and his band of heroes in their ship, the Argos, from Greece to Colchis, which was on the far side of the Black Sea, in what is conceptualized in the play and in the original epic as a part of the world that no Greek has ever been to before. So they go largely because Jason is sort of prompted by his uncle Peleus, who is the king of Aeolus, to go and recover the Golden Fleece from Aeetes, who is the king of Colchis. This is meant to basically kill Jason off, so he can't challenge Peleus for the throne. It doesn't actually work because Jason is a hero, and he has the help of Athena and Hera, two of the most important Greek deities. Basically, it's a long voyage, a bunch of stuff happens, they encounter various challenges, they end up having to abandon Heracles, all this stuff happens. Then they get to Colchis itself. King Aeetes is basically like, do this impossible task, and then I will give you the fleece, and you can go. It's an impossible task, so he figures they can't do it, but Jason... So Hera and Athena recruit Aphrodite, who gets Eros, her son, better known by the Roman name Cupid, to basically make Medea, Aeetes' daughter, fall in love with Jason. Medea is, she has powerful magical powers or a really good knowledge of herbs. Basically, she's a sort of witch type figure, but not like a bad, green-skinned wicked witch of the West type. At this point, later on, in something like Euripides' Medea, a little bit different, a little bit more Wicked Witch of the Westy, but here she assists Jason. They're in love with one another, so she assists him out of love. She betrays her father, betrays her homeland, her brother, all this stuff in order to follow her heart. And because the Golden Fleece was originally belong to the Greeks, and Aeetes has kind of appropriated it. So she helps him overcome the impossible challenges. Then she helps him steal the fleece. Then they sail off. Her brother and, in this version, her fiancé sail after them, at which point Medea helps Jason murder her brother. Then they sail back to Greece, losing a number of the Argonauts along the way, before finally returning to Greece, and everything goes swimmingly up until the point where Euripides' Medea picks up and things go south for everybody involved. So, I don't want to talk that much more about the actual story of the Argonautika. That's a basic gloss of it. What I'm interested in more with this video is how Zimmerman brings these kinds of epic stories to the stage itself, because this is a challenging thing to do. So there's a couple of major techniques that she uses. One is a kind of use of narration, and often in this play, the narrators are Hera or Athena. In something like Zimmerman's Journey to the West, for instance, the Jade Emperor or Guan Yin, the Bodhisattva, tend to be the narrators, primarily the Jade Emperor, but here it's Hera and Athena, in part because deities can stand outside the main action of the show. But we also have these collective components, which is really interesting in the context of adaptations of Greek literature, in part because these tales are so often collectively oriented, particularly something like Greek drama. And of course, the Argonautika is not Greek drama as such. It is an epic poem, but nonetheless, when you put it into a theatrical framework, it makes sense to draw from the traditions of Greek theater. And so the play starts with an invocation, which is sung by everybody. And the invocation is, "Sing in us, muse, the story of Jason and his Argonauts, how he was sent away on the first voyage of the world to bring back the golden fleece, remnant of the flying ram that carried away the little children Prius and Hele when their father was about to murder them. The golden ram flew over the ocean no one had ever sailed, to far-off stony Colchis, all unknown, and Jason was sent to bring its remnants back. What was it like when the world was so young? Let us see the stars in the night sky above our heads. Let us feel the swell of the waves under our feet. Let us hear the snap of the sail in our ears. Let us and those who hear us be generous. Let us be good. Please, let us, please." And so, partially what this does is it kind of sets the scene. It invites us as viewers to right. It invites us as viewers to imagine ourselves in this space, right? This space of the ocean, this space of the night, starry skies, the winds blowing, etc., etc. And so the invocation prompts us as viewers of the play to actually sort of enter that imaginative space where we are willingly suspending our disbelief, right? Because we know that in the theater we're not on the ocean. We're aware of that 100%. But we have to willingly suspend our disbelief in order to follow along with what's happening in the play. So that's one of the elements. And that's not a great example of narration as such, but we get these things regularly throughout the play. So here's just a random one. I just flipped to a random page. This is on the Isle of Lemnos, where the Argonauts basically stay for several days because the women of Lemnos had killed all of their men because the men had gone to Thrace, they had raided Thrace, and they had brought back a bunch of Thracian slave girls. The women of Lemnos were like, that seems sketchy. The fact that you've brought back a bunch of slave girls makes us think you might be having sex with some slave girls rather than us. So the women of Lemnos murder all the slave girls, murder all the men. Just frenzy of murder. The problem that the women of Lemnos now have is that they ain't got no men. which means the society of Lemnos is doomed. And so the Argonauts show up. The Argonauts, with the exception of Atalanta, who's female, the Argonauts are all men. And so basically, the women of Lemnos are like, hey, come have sex with all of us. Which the Argonauts agreed to do, with the exception of Heracles and his friend Hylas. And so we get this bit. Athena narrates this. This is a short one, but she says, they lingered. Each of them, one by one, came from the ship to shore. Days and nights passed, then weeks and even months. Those ladies of Lemnos had not forgotten their charms. Only one stayed behind with his companion, refusing to leave the ship. And so in this way, Zimmerman can cover vast events, vast periods of time within the story through narration by just giving us the high points. But the other thing that Zimmerman often does is she will have a particular episode played out either in miniature or in a sort of mime type performance behind the person speaking, behind the person telling a story. We first get this very early in the play when Peleus is telling Jason the story of the Golden Fleece, which Jason already knows, but Peleus is telling it to us largely so that we, the audience, know, because most people today will not know the story of the Golden Fleece. And so what it says here in the stage directions, as Peleus starts telling this story, is music. During the following, a second pair of servants enter. One carries a little box with two small figurines in it, Prius and Hele, as well as some white powdery dust. The other carries a slender vertical pole crowned by the golden ram. They gently illustrate the various events of Peleus' story as it unfolds. We get something similar later on, another sort of instance of this that I think is really sort of visually striking. There are crashing rocks, and they're these giant rocks in the ocean. They just smash together, and the idea is that they crush ships for some reason. Not really sure geographically or geologically what that's about, but there you go. It's myth, not geology. And what it says here in stage directions is, Athena holds two small stones in her hands. She slams them together and pulls them apart throughout the scene. Hera enters dragging a little replica of the Argo on a string. There is the enormous booming sound of the clashing rocks, wind, and churning sea. So again, these sort of large-scale, epic episodes are able to be portrayed through these sort of stylized performances to convey what's going on in a way that works on the stage, right? So like the 1963 film Jason and the Argonauts, with the magic of cinema, you can create giant boulders that slam together and pull apart, slam together and pull apart. You can show how the ocean is reacting to that. On stage, you can't really do that. That is very difficult to actually create the ocean on stage. And so what Zimmerman does is she gets around this with a stylized performance of Athena smashing two rocks together in her hands so that we get the sense of that. We can understand it. And we even get a visual element, which of course you need on the stage, but it's not to scale. Another thing that Zimmerman does in this play that, if I'm honest, I'm not a big fan of, is she incorporates this very odd musical sequence early on, the roll call. And this is a thing that, I get this is a big problem as far as Greek epic literature goes, Greek poets loved cataloging who was there, what sort of armaments they had, what sort of ships they had, what their um, symbols were, etc., etc. We get this in a lot of the Seven Against Thebes plays. I think particularly Aeschylus's version. We get this in the Iliad by Homer. We get this in the Argonautika, where we have these sort of catalogs of heroes and stuff like this, and that's very boring. It's not necessarily that exciting to read, but it's not exciting dramatically. And so what Zimmerman has done is basically created this sort of weird quasi-rap segment. And actually, I saw Argonautika years ago. I want to say like 2018, 2017, at Penn State Theater, and I was not a fan of this when I saw it live. I'm not a fan of it reading it, but that's my personal taste. So in the scene called Roll Call, we have here, the audience hears the approach of drums, of men shouting excitedly. The company fills the stage chanting and clapping. Many play various percussive instruments. They chant a nonsense phrase such as shabuya, ya, shabuya, roll call, until the first Argonaut steps forward to introduce himself. The drumming and the rhythmic clapping continues throughout. At the end of each phrase of a given Argonaut's boast, except for Typhus's third phrase, the entire company shouts "yeah" or "roll call," as indicated in italics below. The whole thing should be riotous, aggressive, and fast. So we have here, I'll give you the first one. Shabuya, yeah, shabuya, roll call. Shabuya, yeah, shabuya, roll call. And then Idmon steps up. My name is Idmon, yeah. I see the future, yeah, but don't forget that, yeah. I could also hurt you, roll call. I may be blind, yeah, but I speak prophecy, yeah. And furthermore, yeah, I can row the open sea, roll call. Shibuya, yeah, Shibuya, roll call. Shibuya, yeah, Shibuya, roll call. And we go on like this. The only one that is somewhat interesting is the Heracles one. Largely because Heracles in actual Greek mythology, as opposed to like the Kevin Sorbo or Disney versions, Heracles in Greek mythology is often kind of dumb. So we have, my name is she uses the Roman name Hercules. My name is Hercules. Yeah, I've done a dozen deeds. Yeah, so no one better not, because yeah. It falls apart. Hercules has no rhythm. I'm Hercules, yeah. I'm Hercules, yeah. Hercules, Hercules, Hercules. And he just sort of devolves into just chanting his own name. And that's actually a funny bit. Like, I like that element of it, but the whole thing I'm not a big fan of. The whole sort of rap introductions, it doesn't do anything for me. Sorry.